You are listening to the enhanced edition of the Jeff Rubin Show. However, this episode's actually not that enhanced. There are no pictures, but I think it's a good one anyway. I don't know. You tell me. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I am Jeff Rubin, joined this week by Jon Gabrus. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
That is
Jeff.
true. So I kind of made a rule for myself that I didn't want to do any sequel episodes for the first year of the podcast. I've made two exceptions. One is Toby from Degrassi. I did 2 Degrassi episodes because that one, the opportunity just presented
A
itself.
show that has your name in the title twice needs 2 Degrassi episodes at least a year.
And the other exception will be this. We talked about, I think it was the second or third episode where we talked about season 1 of Game of Thrones.
Right.
And we are now back to talk about season 2.
Yes, I am back. Now, I am no Game of Thrones expert. I just happen to have been like your only friend that read the books at the time.
I do think having read the books before the TV show came out is a badge of honor that you should wear. Like,
okay, yeah.
If someone was like, hey, you should read these 1,000-page fantasy tomes, it basically took a show as good as Game of Thrones to make me read those books. That's how good a show would have to be to make me read these books. But it's that good. And I think last time I had just started reading Clash of Kings, the second book that this season was based on. I have now read, my goal was to get through all 5 of them before this podcast. I did not meet that goal. I'm like a third of the way through Dance with Dragons, the 5th book.
All right, well, let's stop down and read the last 60%. It was a quick one.
When I thought I was going to do it, but when I opened up Dance with Dragons, it was even longer than Feast of Crows.
Long, dude.
So let's hammer out a spoiler policy for this episode, for this podcast we are about to record. I think anything from season 2, anything from book 2 goes. But even though we both read beyond book 2, we are going to confine our discussion to season 1 and 2 of the show and book 1 and 2 of the show.
I will also add a warning that I read the books a long time ago, and they also are blended together. So if I blow something
I'll try
big,
to keep you honest.
Yes, keep me honest.
So I will definitely keep, like, you can listen with confidence, people. Like,
yes.
By the time you are listening to this, I have listened to it again. I've researched it, so we're going to be good. So anything that is in the book or the show is fair game, because I think it's really interesting to talk about. I'm hoping it's going to be really interesting to talk about the things that were in that they added for the show, and also the things they took away, and try to figure out why. Because they're mostly the same, and they line up very nicely. But I think you can learn a lot about what their intentions are, what they're going for, by looking at what they've added and what they've taken away. So we're going to talk about things that are in the book that aren't in the show. So I guess you could say if you watch the show and you are planning on reading the book, we're going to spoil that for you a little bit.
But if so, why the fuck are you listening to a podcast about the second season?
I just want to be honest. I just want to
yeah,
all
that's
right.
fair enough.
That is...
The Jeff Rubin super fans out there, they're like, I don't care, ruin every movie for me. I just want to hear Rubin talk.
All right, so that's all the paperwork we have to do for this episode.
I mean, besides me filling out my I-9, because you pay me $25,000 per episode.
That beer you're drinking is pretty much the entire payment. So let's get right into it. Season 2. What do you think? Let's get right into it after all that. We are 4 minutes in.
And let's get right into it. And then the question is, so what'd you think? Let's get to the hard-hitting. Okay, what'd you think? I love season 2. I just watched the finale last night, and I'm processing it still. I think the penultimate, I love using that word, episode of the season was absolutely amazing.
That's the big one that everyone's talking about,
right,
which was Blackwater.
Right. Well, that's like in any movie, it's not the last 10 minutes are the best. It's, the last 30 to the last 10 that are the best. It's the climax of the movie, not just the resolution part.
And that is also something that, God, I feel like we may be repeating ourselves from last year, but that is something that is HBO shows do a lot. On The Wire, everything big happened. All the major deaths happened in the second to last episode of the season, not the last episode. The Sopranos did that, and Game of Thrones did that last year too, where Ned got beheaded, not in the last 10 seconds of the show, but it was in the 9th of 10th episode.
Right, and I think that's because they treat, on HBO, the last episode of their show like the episode 0 of the next season.
Yeah, it's like a preview to...
Right, and I think that's because HBO is one of those channels that has the confidence to be like, yeah, we'll bring you back. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to bring you back. Where most other shows are like they're in the off season still not knowing if they're coming back, so they have to plan these last episodes that are huge cliffhangers that it's okay if they never get resolved. Whereas Game of Thrones has the ability to say, "Hey, we're coming back." I also think I heard that season at book 3 is going to be 2 seasons.
I've heard rumors that book 3, without getting into book 3, I will say book 3 is generally regarded as the best of the set so far.
Yeah,
I think
so
agree.
too. I agree.
So that's exciting. I've heard rumors, and book 3 is also the longest, and I've heard speculation that they might split it up into 2 seasons. So I don't think that's been confirmed.
Yeah.
The Blackwater episode, though, I remember looking before the beginning of the season. I'm on the Wikipedia page for a list of Game of Thrones episode, as I am to do.
Of course, before the season's even aired.
So there's it's a list of episodes, and season 2 had all the dates for the episodes, but the only one that had a title was episode 9. And it said episode 9, Blackwater. And if you've read the books, you knew what was coming. You knew that was going to be the big climactic battle. Episode 9, Blackwater, written by there's no other information for any other episode. But written by George R. R. Martin, directed by Neil Marshall. Do you know Neil Marshall?
No.
So Neil Marshall.
Wait, he does Centaurian, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's the Neil Marshall movie you picked up on.
He also did Descent, right?
Oh yeah, you
holy
definitely
shit!
did it.
I swear to God, guys, no smartphone. I'm so proud of myself right there.
So yeah, I love Neil Marshall. Pat and I both have like kind of this. I don't know. I think we like underrated directors, as nerds maybe do. And so Neil Marshall did The Descent is probably his most popular movie.
Yeah,
his most, and he also did Dog Soldiers was his first movie. It's about werewolves in the army.
Oh right.
Centurion, which went straight to video, but it's pretty good.
I like that.
And Doomsday is his movie that really turned me on to Neil Marshall. I love Doomsday.
I've not seen it.
It's like someone threw every John Carpenter movie in a blender and just mixed them all up.
Oh, that's you just named my favorite director. I'm a huge Carpenter fan.
John Carpenter is like my favorite subgenre of film.
Yeah, it's also my favorite genre of music.
So Neil Marshall directed this, and this episode, Blackwater, had a lot of what you see in Neil Marshall movies, which is kind of like B-movie deaths.
Yeah, exactly. I loved it.
He does B-movie deaths, and he does B-movies basically really well. I love B-movies, and these are his whole catalog.
It's like a lot of period pieces too, his stuff.
Well, that is... I think only Centurion, which was like a Roman thing.
Yeah.
The Descent was present day, Doomsday's in the future, and Dog Soldier's in the present. So I think only that one. But you could really see his fingerprints all over it. Also working within a budget. But when I saw that at the beginning of the year, I could tell that they were planning for this episode. They
clearly were already working on it or something like that, because they had to have been.
They knew from the beginning that they had to orient the entire season around this one episode, which was fucking crazy.
I was so ready to be let down by what the Mage Fire looked like, and holy shit, I was not.
I know that shot of the ship exploding into green flame and
it was so awesome.
I mean, and I feel like we're just going to list awesome deaths for the next few minutes, but the rock coming down on the guy's head. And
I love that is one of my favorite deaths in any movie is the guy's like, blah, 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 like, all right, guys, we got to storm the clunk. I love the arbitrary cutoff death when someone's like in the middle of talking or just glance over at him and then they get smashed immediately.
Also, Tyrion got a lot of huge moments in that episode.
Before we go any further, let's overgeneralize the episode. It's one of the few episodes that only follows one storyline.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. I think it kind of benefited from it.
Exactly.
I wonder if the show would be better if they did that more often, kind of like... I read a review of it today from Alan Sepinwall, who made this point, that they should... Lost. Not every character had to be in every episode of Lost. And there was, some general stuff, but every episode, especially in the beginning when they were using that flashback structure, focused on a specific person. And maybe Game of Thrones could that might benefit them because it really helped that episode.
Well, I mean, that's how the book is written, so you would think that's how they would go. But then again, you find yourself in a Sansa episode and you're miserable. For an hour.
That's a good point.
Though Sansa and Cersei in this episode in Blackwater that we're talking about now that whole scene is amazing.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff. All the stuff in the Red Keep was great.
Yeah.
And that was, oh my God, that episode was there was just so much happening everywhere. Tyrion got to give that speech though, where it's such a an Oscar montage. I know it's not a movie, but this kind of scene they would put in one of those Oscar montages where he's like, "Don't fight for your brothers, don't fight for your land, fight."
Such an awesome thing. Now that wasn't was that in the book?
I don't think so. And if it was, certainly don't think it ended with him saying,
"Those are brave men out there. Let's go kill them."
Which is the show is funnier than the book.
Right? Yeah, Tyrion is. wildly more charming in the movie in the show than he is in the book.
Yeah, it feels like. Well, that's the thing about this episode is it's about as good as a B movie. You know, obviously it's not the Avengers or anything, but I'm just talking like effects wise. It's like up there with a B movie. But you have 19 hours of backstory on every character.
Right.
Whereas
And amazing actors in every single role.
And it's all well written.
Yeah.
So if you see, say, Dog Soldiers, which I think is a very good movie about werewolves in the army, and by the end of it, you've only known these people for an hour. But here, this is action movie. The Avengers a little bit benefited from this too, where you have all this backstory, and it makes it so much more meaningful
when they come together and finally do. Yeah. Oh man, the scene where also. I'm so overwhelmed right now. I keep just restarting thoughts. But my favorite character in the show this season is Bronn, and Bronn got a great focus, great storyline. Yeah, because they stayed just on King's Landing for so long.
That was an additional Bronn scene that definitely wasn't in the book. Usually, you can tell if a scene was not in the book because the book has the way the book is formatted. I think you explained this to me last year, and it's great that I get to. I am now getting to explain it. Is there's POV characters. Basically, every chapter is from a different character's POV.
Yeah.
But you don't get every single character's POV. Like,
there's no Bronn chapter.
Right. So anything you learn about Bronn, you generally see through Tyrion's eyes, or maybe Cersei or something like that. Yeah. Often the characters, you'll see scenes that flesh out the world of these characters. In the book, the POV characters weren't there. So you see the Hound and Bronn, who you don't ever see the world through their eyes. But here in the TV show, you get a nice little scene.
There's that awesome moment between the two of them too, where they realize how alike yet how different they are. Like Bronn and the dog are pretty much the same type of person, both just doing what they need to do for their boss. But Bronn sort of comes at it through like charm and wit, and dog through like fear and hate. So it's like awesome to see those two almost butt heads. And then but because of who they are, the sellswords and the badasses that they are, when they come around together to back each other up, well, for specifically Bronn to save Dog's ass in the fight is awesome.
Yeah. And I think last year you cited, I believe, God, I'm like, I probably should have listened if I was, good at this.
I intended to listen to it on the way over, but I totally forgot.
Yeah, so I think you said, I believe last year that Bronn was one of the characters who didn't really jump off the page for you, but the casting made him much more memorable.
Oh, yeah, he was so cool.
And I wonder if that is how these extra scenes are kind of allotted out, like in last night's finale, there was an extra scene with Varys, who was not a point of view character, and there was an extra scene with... who else? I don't know. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
But, I wonder, the actor, Khal Drogo, the return of Khal Drogo.
Right.
That's something else that wasn't in the book, and I think just the actor, you want to see that actor again.
I think that's one of those things, too, where it's sort of like, relegate this to like The Simpsons, where it's like, you create Duffman for one episode, and then you realize how awesome Duffman is, and you're like, oh, let's put Duffman back in this episode. Let's rewrite let's add Duffman. So like this, it's like, holy shit, the guy who plays Varys is amazing.
Yeah.
So like, let's give him more scenes. Like, let's just get let's give him this opportunity, the actor. Let's give Bronn this moment with the dog. Let's give this character, as you realize that, holy shit, we got something. Jason Momoa is like a legit celebrity, right? And they're like, and he's good as Khal Drogo. They're like, fuck, we can get him back in season 2 somehow,
I think that I've never, and this sounds like a cliche, but I've never seen anything on TV like that Blackwater episode. Maybe the pilot of Lost, which was very expensive and has a lot of plane crash stuff, but I've never seen anything. Maybe the Walking Dead pilot. It's certainly in a small crowd.
Right. But
it's better than God. I don't like to say things are better than Lost as a rule of life, but I think it's better than those things.
Oh, it is. It's a better story. I mean, it's coming from a richer place. Like episode to episode. Yeah, I don't know. Like it was the biggest thing I've seen on TV in a long time. Like just pure. Holy shit, I couldn't believe I was so ready to be underwhelmed. It's one of the first times I think the whole season where you just saw a battle. They never get a topic
there was the one scene they did that in the first. Well, I actually never read the first book. I started right on book 2
after watching season
1. It's not a problem. Some of the character names are tricky to catch up with, but I just felt like I'd already done it. I want to retread that ground.
Fair enough.
So just so you know where I'm coming from. So people talked about that with season 1. In season 2, there was that scene where Rob, it opens with some Lannister army people talking, and then the wolf, you see the appearance of the wolf, and then it cuts to the end of the battle. And I think a lot of people assumed that was another battle scene that was cut. which isn't the case. Like, Robb is actually not a point of view character in the book either. So you actually barely see him at all in the second book of the series. So that wasn't a case of being cut. It's just the battles are generally not what Game of Thrones are about.
It's about the game.
It's about how the real battle is fought in the alleyways and the back room.
And through diplomacy.
Yeah, again, like The Wire, I think, has a similar philosophy.
Yeah. I remember one time, a long time ago, I was like, I was telling someone, I'm like, you got to watch The Wire. They're like, yeah, I heard that show is like just all about the red tape. And I was like, no, oh God, that's the worst pitch I've ever heard. But I guess technically it is.
That's extremely accurate.
Yeah, but it's an awful pitch. This show is about all the, take something really awesome like murder mystery, and just it's about all the bullshit and semantics around it.
I think on the other side of the coin from Blackwater, there's the finale, which had every character. Usually, there's a few characters who aren't in any given who aren't in a given episode.
Right.
But the finale had basically everyone. I think. I don't think I'm even. Even Littlefinger showed up for a second. He was barely in this year.
Yeah. Holy shit, yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think I think that's just to be like, this is our starting off point for season 3.
Yeah, I loved that scene with Varys, which again was something that was added to the book. Just you get to see him work a little. You get to see how he does things.
You get to see how fucking crazy he is. He's so awesome. In the books, they make him up to be like this mysterious guy who can pull off anything, and I think we don't see that as much.
Yeah,
because they're letting Tyrion seem so badass, but in the books, Tyrion is deathly afraid of Varys because Varys is capable of so much more.
I did think the finale dropped the ball. I watched it with some people who are not familiar with the books, and they, as soon as the episode started, they were like, "Didn't the Hound run away with Sansa?" And I didn't have a good answer. I thought that was he did, and I couldn't explain exactly what had happened.
Yeah, I don't know why that she was still around either.
I don't even remember the books are so long and dense. There's a million things that happen, and I couldn't even remember what both those elements were in the book, but I think I
don't know how they have to be a little fuzzy with the timeline so that things happen at the same time in the show, right? So I think they have to push stuff and drag stuff out. I remember I heard someone, I think it was John August on his podcast Script Notes, talking about how like episodes 7 and 8 and maybe even some and 9, obviously because she wasn't in at all, they were just like stalling with Daenerys. They were like, wait, I still haven't found my dragons. It's like, yeah, but they were just gotta remind the audience, like, hey, this is what's happening in Karth. But if she gets her dragons in episode 6, her story climaxes. So, it's a lot of like just going into rooms being like, well, I'm the mother of dragons. I need my dragons.
Yeah, well, Daenerys does not have a lot to do in Clash of Kings.
Yeah.
She's for a large part, she's wandering around the desert. So they kind of created the House of the Undying stuff is in there, but they kind of had to just create some conflict just to give this great actress something to do. And I think that led to all the stuff in Karth with, they didn't let her into Karth for an episode. And I think that was just to give Daenerys something to do.
Right.
And a lot of it, and the same with the Robb stuff. The Robb stuff you got in the book, a lot of it just led to like one scene that was in the book, like the House of the Undying. Like it was all there just to get you through that House of the Undying.
That was her climax. That was her climax. That was my climax.
But similarly, Robb in the book, you don't see him fall in love with the girl whose name they changed from the book for some reason.
Wasn't it Jane Poole?
It's Jane in the book. I forget what it is on the show.
Right, because I was so confused. Now, why would they do that?
But so in the show, in the book, you don't get to see him fall in love with her.
Right.
He just shows up one day, and they basically have what was that last scene with him and his mom from the season finale, where he tells her he's getting married. In the book, he just shows up, and he's like, I'm getting married. You don't see him fall in love. And watching the show, now I understand why that wasn't in the book, because it was super boring.
It was super boring, but they have to give this character Robb, who in the books is not a main character, but if you're making a TV show, you can't have this guy who so much action is based around not be a character.
Yeah.
And I also think they got a good actor in the guy who's playing Robb, so they're like, we got to give him some stuff. So
I don't think there's any bad actors on the show. Like I don't think.
No, I don't think so. It's an insane. Hey, I just found out that Theon is Lily Allen's brother.
Oh, I got a better one for you. Shay, Tyrion's lady friend, who's a whore, is in porn.
Is in porn?
Yeah, she was in porn.
That's awesome.
Yeah, terrific, right?
Who was the person who told you that when you were watching? You're like, oh, I recognize her. You're like, that person's like, whoops.
Believe it or not, I think I saw it on the internet.
Internet porn?
Yeah.
On the internet.
I know. Crazy, right? What else? I mean, how about the finale, the last shot? that Megadeth album cover with the screaming ice trap on the zombie horse.
Yo, I swear to God that I had that poster up in college. Just like the fucking arbitrary ice warrior on a horse. That was insane.
Yeah.
It was a little shitty looking, I will say. But it's awesome enough. Like,
for TV,
I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I'm okay
totally.
with it, but
I mean,
feel-
you're watching the show it's not like you're going to see, what's a movie you'd only see for the special effects? I don't know, Transformers or
Right,
something.
exactly.
Hopefully you wouldn't see that under any circumstances, but like, if the special effects are
I've
bad...
seen all 3 in the theaters. I'm serious.
If the special... I skipped 2 in theaters, but I eventually saw it on video. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I could just watch a hour-long Blu-ray of the Transformers changing from cars into robots and back. That's all I need.
Yeah. Oh, God, that is a... Oh, so let's focus.
Sorry.
So if the special effects are bad in Transformers, it falls apart even more. That Transformers is the best example.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah.
But in Game of Thrones, even if the special effects were worse than they are, you'd still love the show.
Yeah,
It
that's not what the show is about.
Yeah.
But it's weird to like end on that image.
Did you notice that shot of Daenerys walking away, and you could tell it was going to be the last time you saw her this year, and like the dragon kind of lingered in frame?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he kind of turned to
It was
the
almost
camera.
like, that's all, folks.
Yeah,
Like, winked.
Iris in.
Yeah.
He like really like turned to the camera and was like, "See you next year."
Yeah. Well, I was so pissed. I was like, don't end on this chick with a fucking dragon again. Like, that's not...
Yeah, I thought that might be what they were going for. They're just going to end on that.
Thank God they didn't, because I was like, that there's no new information. She had the dragons, lost them, and got them back.
Yeah, but now she has all the money, I guess.
I think what they have is that the dragons she really can control them now,
Yeah,
and they're
with, like, her
dangerous.
mind powers.
But there was no money, right? She doesn't have. She has like
Well, they took all the jewels, and
Yeah.
I think she has enough for a ship, as
Yeah.
they explained.
right.
The other thing that I thought was a little iffy in the way they handled it was the burning of Winterfell. It was kind of unclear why, and I don't want to talk about this too much because it's in the books, but I'm afraid they might have changed it.
Right.
But I did think it was a little unclear, not spoiling anything, just why they had to run away. And I think I can kind of guess at what they were getting at, having read ahead in the books. But it just didn't make sense if you were watching the show. I don't think it totally held together.
Because I watch every episode with my wife, who didn't read the books, so I get like a very good I get a good idea of what's confusing. I mean, you know, she is a girl, so there's a lot of stuff that confuses her. But there is like a lot of moments where she's like, wait, who is that? Who are they referring to? And I'm like, you know what? That is kind of complicated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. And then like she was like, wait, what just happened? Why did Theon's guy throw the bag over his head? I was like, oh, because Rob casually mentioned that in another episode, in an earlier episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, without seeing anything, it's very difficult. Like, if you don't, because it's hard to keep up with names. So if someone's like, well, don't worry, my bastard son will throw them, but every Greyjoy that's in there except for Theon, you know, that confuses some people.
I think I watched the first season not having read the book, and I thought it was very confusing that I don't think it was really glossed over that Theon, what his situation was, that he was being held hostage there.
But I think they got that note somewhere, because this season he brought it up like 40 times.
Yeah, well, I think the Theon arc was my favorite part of the book, and I thought it was terrific on the show too. And I thought the scene with him and Master Lewin, who's the old master of Winterfell, was incredible.
So good. I mean, he's the biggest prick on the show.
But he's
also
the
saddest.
It was sympathetic, you know, and that's what was so good about it. I thought last night was pretty much full of killers. Like even though there were these moments that were spotty, there were some just incredible scenes all around. That being one. Daenerys and Khal Drogo, which we'll talk about later, being another.
Right.
Tyrion and Shay, I thought was a very sweet scene.
There's a lot of heavy-duty emotional scenes for a show that usually just has tits and swords.
Yeah. I want to get back to what you said about your wife, and I think girls, to their credit, seem to be kind of into Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they are. And you know what? My wife's theory is that it is a bit trashy.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's like reminiscent of the trashy shows that my wife likes to watch.
It's got a little bit of everything.
It's entry level fantasy too. You know what I mean? Like the fantasy element of the swords and sorcery and stuff is second to the drama, like the gossip and the infighting and shit.
You mentioned this. You definitely, I remember you mentioning this last year, that it eases you into the magic. Like when you start the show, it's not all that magical at all, and then at the end of the first season, there's dragons. This year we got a fucking shadow baby being born. There's a shape changer. There's a zombie army riding dead horses. Like the zombie army you saw last night was way more magical than the zombies you saw in the first season.
Right. It was just like so much more too. Well, I think
Because they had like a sense of organization too. Like they were a force.
I like that though. I like that in the first season it was like you only like saw glimpses or heard noises, and then at the end of the second season is like, look out, motherfuckers! Here comes like 200 ice. It's so awesome, that ending scene. Just like the rapid pull out to see all those characters.
Yeah, I like zombie horses a lot. I thought that was a great.
Yeah.
touch.
Oh, of course, zombie horses. Ever since The Cell, I've been a huge fan of mutilated horses.
I never saw The Cell.
Hey, get your shit together and see The Cell.
I know it's got like I know what it's about. I know there's a lot of random imagery, and I just like to know there's mutilated horses in it somewhere. Just working around there. Something I thought about the entire season was that Stannis. I don't think they did a great job really like laying out who Stannis was and what his deal was. And
I think all the Baratheon brothers were sort of just they were like.
First of all, the Baratheon brothers. I don't know, like, I think they're all good in their individual parts. It is a large stretch to imagine they were actually raised together.
I know.
Robert, the king from last season, Renly, and Stannis seem like they could never be friends, much as, like, grow up in the same household.
Yeah, I don't understand, like, it's glossed. I'm trying to remember how it is in the books, but it's like, why are they such assholes to each other?
I don't know. I think it's addressed. I mean, like, I think that you can appreciate their individual motivation that...
Right.
Renly was, kind of pushed into it by Loras, and that Stannis is being pushed into it by this woman, and they both believe they'd be great kings. Like, I think they all genuinely believe that. I'm just saying, like, they don't at all look like brothers. Like, no two of the three.
They don't even act like brothers. Yeah.
But I think, like, Stannis, for being such a major part of that climactic battle, I don't think you really understood what his deal was until the scene in the season finale with him and Melisandre.
Yeah.
Which I think was also not in the book, because Stannis... Usually you only see Stannis through the eyes of Davos, the smuggler with the fingers on it. Yeah. So I think that scene with him and Melisandre last night, which was, again, an invention for the show, was the first time that people who only watch the show got a sense of who Stannis was and what he was trying to do.
It's also like, at that moment you're
that and the scene where he fucked Melisandre on the war table.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's like that's nerd porn. Literally, he has sex with an evil fire sorceress on what ostensibly is a tabletop board game. It's like you fucked on your Dungeons and Dragons map. Like there's lead miniatures. It's Warhammer. You're having sex on top of.
He should be the king.
Yeah. I can't believe like that moment is like Tiffany was like, my wife was like, oh right. Yeah, I was like, yeah, they are brothers. They don't speak about it that much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget.
Yeah, it's easy to forget because it's not reminded. And at that point, and you were like, what? Oh, right, yeah. And to see his emotions where it's like, oh, that's what was going through his mind. Mm-hmm. But, and then, I'm sorry, I cannot stand Melisandre. Is that how we say it?
I think so.
Yeah. I think we talked about this
last time.
Last time, too. It's like, you read it so much, then you're like, this is how I pronounce it.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, Ygritte, I think, is the girl, the redheaded girl that up in the north with Jon Snow. And in the book, I think there's 3 fucking consecutive G's. There's at least 2. and like, she came on the show and she's like, I am Ygritte. And I was like, oh.
Thank you. Yeah. I hate her because of the books. Like
Melisandre?
Yeah. I just can't stand her as a character. I'm like, because she's so manipulative. And then it sort of rolls over into the show where I'm like, shut up.
I just think that I generally don't like on 2 other shows I love, Lost and Battlestar Galactica, the faith and the religious aspects, never my favorite aspect of the show,
Right.
It's always
it's not my favorite aspect of life.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that shit when someone's like, actually has faith. I don't want to see it in a TV show.
Forget life. What about how you feel about it with respect to Lost?
Fair enough. Well, isn't life really just Lost?
Another character that you get to see a lot more of on the show is Lord Tywin. Someone who kind of looms as sort of you just hear legends about it, but on the show, Arya being his cup maid was sort of invented for the show.
I thought it happened in the book.
She's like around him, but she's not like in every scene.
Right, exactly. Well, I think that was a great addition to keep Arya.
Arya, I think.
I guess I've always said Arya. To keep Arry alive,
Right.
and with Tywin, because that guy, the bad guy from Last Action Hero, that's how I know Tywin Lannister.
Right. The guy with the contacts in his eyes.
He has the glass eye with the bullseye with a have a nice day, a smile face.
The second greatest villain of all time after Tywin Lannister, of course, the bad guy from Last Action Hero.
Yeah. So he plays two of the greatest villains.
Right.
So their dynamic, those scenes were amazing.
Yeah, you know what was a particularly good one involving another character you don't get to see a lot in the book, and just to give him something else to do was that scene with Littlefinger, and does Littlefinger recognize her? Was
Right.
really tense.
I love
a great scene.
Littlefinger, Carcetti is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny that he has like Carcetti's accent on top of like the old timey speak that they all do in the common tongue. He has like a little bit of like that hard Baltimore accent, but on top of all that, he's actually native Irish, right? Like he's from Ireland.
So I'm assuming he's in some movie he's in.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of 21 Rounds with John Cena.
Yes, where he's the bad guy.
Right. A friend of mine who loves The Wire was like, I just realized that was Carcetti. I was like, what are you fucking kidding? Like, he's in the dark.
He just has a flavor saver. That's the only difference.
He's in the brief preview of Dark Knight Rises that was before Mission Impossible, was it?
Yep.
And like, I mean, for the rest of his life, as soon as he steps on camera and be like Carcetti, and I like that way with a lot of people from The Wire, just because those characters were so memorable.
Right, and a lot of them, it was their first big role.
Yeah. It's definitely, and also the Wire is so real that I will also almost certainly never call him Aidan Gillian or whatever his real name is.
Senator Clay Davis for the rest of my fucking life. I have no idea what his real name is.
Another great addition was the scene with Joffrey and the whores that... Is it okay if I call them whores?
It's their profession. It's their job.
So the scene with Joffrey...
That was brutal.
That really shook me. And that
fucked me. I'm a dark man, and that shit hurt. That bothered me.
That is rare that TV can do that. There was another scene similar from the season 2 premiere of Sons of Anarchy with Henry Rollins and Katie Sagal. Have you watched Sons of Anarchy?
No, I have not.
I won't even bother explaining. People that have watched it definitely know what I'm talking about, and it's like really unsettling and like I don't know. You just have to like unpack it in your head, like how twisted it was.
The kid who plays Joffrey first of all, he's like 21.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's like a major twink looking dude. He is so good. He's like uncomfortably evil.
Yeah.
Everything he says, every line he says is just, there's such a slither underneath everything he says.
When it like overrides my logic. Like, I know that's an actor playing a part, but I think I hate the person.
I think I will hate him and everything he's in for the rest of his life.
And it's a weird combination where I'm like, I have to think he is an actor, and I have to recognize that to go the extra step and hate him as an actor. Like, I'm thinking of both things at one time, how it's not really a person, but also still putting the fiction onto him. But that's how good he is. He out Malfoy's Malfoy from Harry Potter.
Yes, he's Malfoy squared. He is so... Excuse me. Also the way he sits on the throne.
Yeah.
He sits like sort of side saddle. And I think I remember from the book saying like part of the thing about the throne is if you can sit, you have to be man enough just to sit on it because it's made from swords melted together, so it's sharp. So like he sits with a certain discomfort, but also like a little bit of like pompousness or pomposity, I don't know what the word is, but he sits like sort of sassy. He's like sassy and uncomfortable at the same time. So it just shows so much about his character, just the way he sits in those scenes. Like when Loris's sister asks for him to marry her in the season finale.
I thought that was a great scene because you could tell that everyone in that scene was acting. Like, you could tell that the characters were playing a part within the show. Like, they were acting like they were acting, which is hard to do.
Right, yeah, to show that it's like, we're all lying, right?
Yeah,
we have to all sell that we are making up. But...
Because that was something in L.A. Noire, I'm gonna take a brief detour. L.A. Noire, which I thought was a great game, and I think we talked about it on the show at some point.
We did, actually. The episode I was on, we did talk about L.A. Noire, because we talked about how it's like a great game that you can get your girlfriend to play along with you.
Oh, weird. Well, different thing was, one thing with L.A. Noire was that if you remember, all the hype was about how they captured the performances, and you had to tell when someone was telling the truth or lying. And oftentimes when people were lying, it was really obvious, because they're already acting. So to act like you're acting is... there's a layer there that's hard to communicate.
It can be easily transparent.
So it was often obvious when they like roll their eyes or they do something very,
a tell.
Yeah, you could see them making like an acting decision to do something. Right. Whereas I think in that scene, like they were all, just the right amount of bullshit.
Yeah,
the scene literally started off with the horseshit, which was a nice touch.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I can only hope that was serendipitous, that they were just like, all right, we're going to start with the horse's legs, and then took a giant shit, and they were like, use this take.
I like that Tywin gets to ride a horse in the hall, too.
Yeah, that's like the second time, too, right?
Well, he stormed in last week.
Yeah,
but like,
on a horse, though.
But, like, why? He's just standing still. I think, just to show he's elevated.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why, but it's great.
Yeah, well, what's everyone's end game there? Why? What is going to happen to Sansa now? Like, I mean, I know.
Yeah,
but like, what are they setting
I don't
up?
want to even pretend to speculate because we've
It's
read
unfair.
read the books.
Right, yeah, but it's weird because it seems like at the end of that moment right there, you're like, what is everything? What is going to happen here?
Yeah, I think that this show may have something like The Wire, where for years I see these characters and I think of them as their Game of Thrones people, because I saw a picture of Arya and Sansa, who are apparently really good friends in real life, and they're just like kind of making goofy faces, and it blew my mind.
Someone sent me a picture of Arya, Sansa, Theon, Rob, and Jon. And I had, like, the guy who sent it to me I'm like, who's that dude all the way on the right with them? And he was like, Jon Snow, dude. I was like, no way. He doesn't have a beard. That's not Jon Snow. He's like, well, that's the guy who plays Jon Snow happens to not have a beard. And I was like, no. And I could not wrap my head around it. They were like in a library. It was just so weird.
And also, like The Wire, they're all great performances that I expect will.
Right.
I mean, I thought Sansa was great in that little moment she got to like steal for herself, where she like got to be happy for a second before it was taken
Poor
away.
thing. That's it.
And Arya was terrific.
She's amazing. I'm so excited for her. I won't. This is not a spoiler, but I am so excited for her storyline.
I mean, I don't know. How old is she? 14, 15?
Hopefully 18.
But she, for a young actress, she's carries so much of it. She's incredible.
She's amazing on the show. Also, like all the young actors, like the kid who plays Bran. First of all, this is gonna sound pretty creepy, but he is ridiculously handsome.
That did sound creepy. Yeah. I mean,
but I prefaced it.
Yeah.
It's okay, right?
Fair enough.
That kid that plays Bran is very handsome, and he's a very good actor. He's playing a paralyzed lord. Like, that's such an insane role for a kid to play.
That's like some Robert De Niro shit.
Yeah.
He was great. And I thought the scene with him and when they were saying goodbye to Master, what's his name, Lewin, or something like that.
Yeah.
I think there's two L's. Who the fuck knows? When Lewin asked to be killed, I thought it was such a great scene.
Oh, so awesome.
It was great when even Master Lewin doesn't recognize the existence of Rickon. He's just like, he's just talking to Bran. He like turns to him very, very briefly.
Yeah.
I do remember last year watching the show and like finally feeling like I had a handle on it and all the different houses.
And you're like, wait, who the fuck is that?
And they were like, that's another Stark. And I was like, there's another Stark?
Yeah.
I like finally felt like I had it.
It is a lot. It's crazy how much George R.R. Martin just threw out in that first book he wrote. He was like, yeah, you know what? Let's give them, there'll be 4 kids, there'll be 1 hostage kid, and then there'll be a bastard child. It's like, wait, slow down. Yeah. You have to write all this. Like, and then you're like, cool, we got all those kids. Well, how about there's 7 Lannisters and we follow? It's like, wait, give yourself a break.
Yeah, I have no interest in writing fantasy literature, but I try to imagine him writing it and just the well of ideas. Like, every one of these characters could be the star of their own story. They kind of are. Like, any of these people could be a book. Like, just look at Theon. Like, he's got this whole... Theon could be a movie or a book. And he just never stops inventing. And as it goes on, again, like The Wire, I compare everything to The Wire, they keep adding on new characters, and they're always there's always some interesting
That was one of the
dynamic.
things when I was reading the books, I couldn't believe when they added, and when I was like, who the hell is Davos? Why are they adding it? There's so much to get settled with all these other characters. And then that keeps happening throughout the books. They keep adding more and more.
I said Davos, but we're talking about the smuggler guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, I love all their casting, and the dude who plays Davos is really great, but I feel like he looked a little bit too much like Stannis, and it got confusing at points.
Yeah.
I mean, even for me, I'm like, wait a minute, who are we looking at right now?
Yeah, because you just didn't get to spend much time with them.
Exactly.
So when George R.R. Martin writes the episode and adds a new scene with Bronn, does that mean that scene with Bronn is canon? I'm always interested in the relationship between the books and the TV show, and like which is the they really go together. Like they kind of you really need to read both of them to experience both of them to see the entire story. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I guess you get a little bit more, like just like in Lord of the Rings. It's like the same thing. I compare those two. I know you keep comparing to The Wire, but like what is going to be our Game of Thrones? What is going to be our Song of Ice and Fire, Tom Bombadil? What is going to be the thing that after 4 seasons you're like, you know what? We haven't seen enough of blank. Or
So the second season was the only one I had watched after reading the book. But there is no Tom Bombadil. There's no major element of the story missing, which is why I was able to read the second book without reading the first book after only watching the first season of the show.
Right, because they don't really leave out much. They don't go into super extensive detail about every meal that the characters eat like the book does.
Yeah.
I mean, George R. Martin's house must have like character storylines everywhere, and like he must get stoned and come up with the most insane ideas for food. It's like always like fig jam spread over pork round. You know, you're like, what?
Someone is doing a Game of Thrones cookbook. It's called In at the Crossroads, and it looks great.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I know there was a blog where like women cook.
It might be the blog. I think it was. Well, the book is based on a blog. It was a blog first, so this might be the same thing. It is called In at the Crossroads, though.
That's great.
Yeah, it looks awesome. And it makes so much sense. They describe so much food.
It's so...
I like...
the sex and the food are almost both as tantalizing in the way George writes. So it's so obvious that like we know this guy comes from. This is just like hardcore sex described and like hardcore eating orgies.
Yeah, even if you've never seen a picture of George R. R. Martin, you might be able to guess what he looks like.
Yeah, and then when you do see a picture, you're like, that guy likes food and sex a lot.
And fantasy novels. But there's a level of detail in it too where like the people he's not describing food just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, you can see that even when you watch the show, if you pay attention, I think that the Lannisters are eating one type of food in King's Landing. They're eating very opulently, whereas at the Wall they have to eat meager scraps.
Right.
And in the North they have different dishes. So it helps. I think I'm terrible at geography, both in real life and in video games, and I think I could draw a pretty good map of Westeros. You know, like he really has created this world with a lot of details.
Did we talk about this last episode where the opening credits are different depending on the...
Maybe. I don't know. I talk about Game of Thrones a lot.
Me too. Yeah. This is a very similar...
So the opening credits are different every episode depending on which locations you visit.
Yeah. This one had... the season finale had Harrenhal and one other that... It's not Deepwood Mott. They had another one. I forget what it was.
Maybe the... Iron Islands?
Yeah, well, yes, that's what it was. And I was like, ooh, this is so... I didn't even notice that. I thought I just finally figured it out this season. Mm-hmm. Unless I mentioned it last episode, then in which case I figured it out late.
I did notice that last week had some places that weren't actually featured in the episode, like Harrenhal.
Right. But I think it's because they were mentioned because... I was going to say Carcetti.
Littlefinger
gets that.
Right. How about the casting of Jaqen Yahar?
So
this man, that guy, you know, the assassin.
Yeah. I love that. That character is amazing.
And the cast, such a weird kind of like, I don't know.
He looks like a porn actor as well, right?
He does. But reading the book, he's kind of hard to get a read on. And
he's not that huge. Like he's not that big of a character when he first comes in.
Yeah,
so you can imagine but then like that guy, the actor just pops off the screen.
Well, that's what makes reading the book so difficult. Is like this is what makes reading books hard. Is you'll meet a character and you'll be like, should I learn this guy's name and what he does? And then you don't know if you should worry about him until you read it a few times and you're like, wait, now which guy was that? Like I wish it was in bold if you had to remember.
No, this guy's coming back, don't worry.
I need a beginner's edition for books. I don't mean to make it sound like those books are hard to read. They're actually quite easy to read.
They're very digestible.
Yeah.
Very good, like I said, entry-level fantasy. Like,
even the fourth one, which I think, just like the third one's generally considered the best, the fourth one, a lot of people warned me is the worst. Wasn't bad at all. I definitely...
I think I would have to say the last one was the worst.
Oh, really? I'm about a third of the way through it. I do think, though, that season one lined up with season one. We're not going to get spoilery.
Right.
Season one lined up with book one. Season two lined up with book two. They might have to do something with splitting season three.
Or maybe they could do a 12 or 13 episode
season. I mean,
season.
I wouldn't think adapting the show is possible at all, so I wouldn't I wouldn't put anything up. But then the fourth and fifth book, not getting spoilery, they do something interesting where you only get half the characters in book four and you get the other half of the characters in book five, and they take place at the same time, which is as stupid as it sounds in my opinion.
Yes.
But obviously they're not going to film it that way. So
Right.
I think it is going to start developing.
They're gonna
its own-
split up season 3 and then combine split up book 3, then combine books 4 and 5 and split that over 4. It's gonna be some crazy adaptation.
Probably one of the most incredible things. I mean, first of all, it's amazing that we've been talking about the show for 45 minutes now, and we barely even touched on Peter Dinklage, who is, I mean,
Amazing.
what else needs to be said about him?
Dude, he's ridiculously handsome too. After
he
watching
is.
more and more of him, I'm like, this dude is.
Yeah.
He looks so like manly. He's like so handsome.
I do think he's a little more good looking than he's supposed to be in the
Right,
books.
I think
in the books he's like sort of, I think, a little more twisted and
Yeah, he's like disgusting.
Yeah, he's a little-
and he's charming only because of he's intelligent and funny. In this book, they make him seem like he genuinely is like has guile and charisma. and stuff
yeah,
like that.
like you could get why Shay would want to be with him.
Exactly, but in the books, it's all a little more wary. You're like, what's going on here?
So maybe the most incredible thing about Game of Thrones is how popular it is. Like, I can't believe I'm not that into fantasy. I know. I feel like I'm confessing something here. I'm generally not that. I'm more of a sci-fi, comic book, superhero kind of dude. And I'm super into this. And people that would never, ever consider reading this, it's one of the most popular, I don't know the exact numbers. I think it's the most popular show since The Sopranos. It is enormously popular.
I cannot believe how many people I see reading Game of Thrones on the subway.
Oh my
now.
God.
But back when I was doing it, back when I was reading on the subway, that sounds so ridiculous. I was like, oh man, this is crazy. I have a 1,000-page book that says like a Feast of Crows on it. And
Right.
Yeah. Now everyone's like, oh, you're reading cool, you're reading this, you're reading that.
Yeah.
I was like, now everyone has people to talk to the book, like talk about the book with. I don't have that. I never had that. I'm jealous.
It's so it's like more popular than other popular HBO shows. It's really reached a level where it's certainly the most popular thing on HBO. And I think we talked about this last time. It kind of premiered around the same time as Boardwalk Empire, and I think
Right.
HBO thought Boardwalk Empire was going to be
It's
the
Sopranos.
the new Sopranos, the new flagship series for the network, and it isn't.
I don't know that many people that watch Boardwalk Empire. I know that's so close. Like in my small group of friends, not everyone watches, but everyone watches Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people that watch a lot of TV, and
Me too.
I hear a lot more about Game of Thrones than Boardwalk
Yeah,
Empire.
Game of Thrones and Mad Men are my Monday morning conversations.
I mean, let's talk about that for a second. This spring has been very crazy in terms of TV.
Sunday DVR has been very difficult. I've been having to DVR like repeat episodes of The Killing at 1 a.m.
Oh, I'm not even watching The Killing.
I know.
But Girls and Veep are both terrific.
I'm not watching Veep yet, but I have watched Girls. Girls is amazing.
Girls is amazing, and Veep is also amazing, and in a totally different way than Girls is. It's like, I don't know, it's just like, I feel so fortunate, really, that there's like these two, even putting aside all the drama, there's these two great comedies airing at the same time that are like totally great in totally different ways.
No, like that's Sunday night on one channel is 2 hours of great programming.
Yeah. And so, did you watch Mad Men and Game of Thrones both on Sunday night this spring?
Yes.
I did that a few times, and I feel like it really would hurt both of them. Like, if I watched them back to back, they're both such dense shows with so much going on in them.
So many characters.
If you watch them back to back, it's 2 hours, which is about the length of a movie, but like we were saying, there's so much backstory, and they're both such heavy shows. I want to say particularly Mad Men, but no, they're both really heavy shows that you need to watch. I don't know. I felt like I needed to watch them separately to like give them time to breathe and think about them.
Right. Well, at our house, we're huge fans of both shows, and my wife works for AMC, and I'm a rabid fantasy nerd. So we have to, for the sake of diplomacy,
For the sake of the marriage.
Yeah, for the sake of the marriage, we have to watch both of those. And even though she works on the show, we can't give priority to either show. It's like, all right.
Well, Game of Thrones was on first, so I usually watch that one first.
That's how we did.
I'd end the night with Mad Men, and I'd be like, what happened in Game of Thrones again?
Yeah.
Did they get the account? Like, they'd kind of get mixed up in my mind.
That would be Don Draper would fucking run Westeros if he accidentally landed there. This would be a fun game to compare which characters from both shows are. Because I just in my head was like, oh, Sterling and Tyrion are the same character.
I think Sterling is. I was gonna say Tywin, but maybe that's just because they're both like silver foxes.
Yeah.
Who else? I guess. Well, who's Peggy? Arya's probably Peggy.
Yeah, probably the female character scraping up and deciding to man up and kick some ass.
There's a lot of that in Game. You could make a lot of cases for the Peggy of Game of Thrones.
Well, I think
though.
George R. R. Martin writes really awesome, powerful female characters.
There's a lot of women on Game of Thrones who are trying to like push through whatever ceiling exists in Westeros. You have Arya who's trying, from the very beginning, like wasn't into girly things.
Yeah.
Cersei is like more ambitious than your typical, I think most of the women in King's Landing. But also Theon's sister, whose name they also changed, so I can't remember.
Right.
And what's her face? Brienne, too.
Yes, it's so... and he does throw in a good amount of whores that are just getting arbitrarily
Don't
fingered.
worry, you're going to get your whore.
Don't worry, it's not that. We're not pushing feminism too much on this show.
But it is a large theme of the show, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, I don't know. The one criticism I have, and I believe I said this last year, too, is... sometimes I don't know where Game of Thrones is going, and it feels like it's just a bunch of stuff happening.
Right, and that's for even having read the book.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, where? First of all, we haven't talked about this yet. The Brienne and Jaime Lannister scene.
Oh, my
when
God.
the 3 Stark men come up.
Yeah.
That scene was awesome.
Yeah.
And you could just see the anger she had just at the fact that those were women that were murdered.
Yeah. That is one of the few things I think they really changed from the book. Because in the book, I think Brienne is a little more remorseful about killing people.
Yes,
she wants to be a knight, but she isn't happy to kill people. But
right.
here, she's like one of the fucking Expendables for a minute. She's
yes,
like,
that's all. I love that point when she's like, killed the first 2 quickly.
Yeah.
She just stabs that dude through his taint. Dude. They don't show it, but I turned to my wife. I was like, she just stabbed him in the balls. She was like, yes.
One thing that they kept the same that I was very impressed that they kept was the shadow baby. I do remember when you read the books, knowing that's a TV show, you kind of do play like producer, and you're like, I'd cut that part out. That's not that necessary.
Right. I would have definitely gotten rid of that.
But Shadow Baby, when I remember reading Shadow Baby in the book and being like, I'm talking about when Melisandre, do I have to explain what I'm talking about? I'm talking about when Melisandre births a fucking Shadow Baby.
Oh, that Shadow Baby.
I remember reading that in the book and being like, well, I'm interested to see what they come up with, because there's no way they're going to show that.
I didn't like that part in the book or in the show.
Yeah.
I feel like it's an easy answer to kill a character we're supposed to believe is a main character at that point.
Well, I guess the point is Stannis and Davos are like dabbling in things they shouldn't be to get what they want.
Exactly.
It's not really about I don't think there's ever going to be an episode where they explain the exact shadow magic that came forth from her womb.
Well, that's what I thought. I was like, and also the fact that if we would have seen that Shadow Beast kill Renly and then seen that birthing scene, I feel like that would have been awesome, because then it would have been like, what the fuck was that? But instead, you see the birthing scene and you just know it's going to kill Renly at some point. So it felt like
you knew it was going to kill Renly because you had read the book. I don't know if that clear to everyone.
I thought that's. Oh yeah, I guess maybe not.
But it was interesting. I thought that Shadow Baby is the cliffhanger they end the episode on, and then the Renly thing happens in the beginning of the next episode.
Yes.
I thought it was a nice touch.
That's cool. Yeah.
All right, you good here? Look, I'm going to transition to the other thing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Anything else we want to talk about Game of Thrones?
Did we talk about? We have not talked about the Khal Drogo scene though.
Yeah, but we talked about it there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it more?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or do you want to talk about it and then we can use that to transition into it?
Right. Yeah. Let's just do something. I don't have anything.
Okay, I didn't prepare this either.
They also added the right.
Yeah. One other scene that I was kind of nervous about was the House of the Undying scene, which I thought was sort of a trying read in the book, because in the book it's a little more hallucinatory, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a little more psychedelic.
Yeah.
And I'm generally not that into that kind of thing.
Only in real life.
Yeah. So I was a little nervous about that scene because I could imagine it being done like a shitty B movie with like weird things happening. But they went another route and they brought back Jason Momoa to play Khal Drogo, and I thought that scene was incredible.
That scene was so awesome. So many great quotes from that scene.
Yeah. So let's cap off this episode by bringing back a previous Jeff Rubin show guest. Let's call up David Peterson, and if you didn't listen to his episode, you should listen to it. No offense, John. I think it might be my favorite episode of the Jeff Rubin.
It's my second favorite episode. My first being the Action Park one.
So David Peterson created the Dothraki language that is spoken in Game of Thrones. That is a working, functional language, like Spanish or French or Elvish in Lord of the Rings or Klingon in Star Trek. And
those are the romance languages.
we talk about this in the episode, but it is so. Go listen to that episode if you want to hear the backstory and how he does that. But I said this then. It's so true. It's really one of those details, like the food, that adds up. And even if you're not consciously aware that this is a language that actually functions, it's one of those details that makes the show so immersive.
Yeah, if they just pulled out all the stops, it's like every little detail has got so much shit going on behind it.
Absolutely. And now for some insight into some of those details, please welcome back to the show one of my all-time favorite guests, David Peterson. Hey, David.
Thanks a lot. Great to be back.
I thought one of the best scenes from the season finale, if not the entire season, was Daenerys being reunited with Khal Drogo via magic in the House of the Undying. I think I'm describing what happened correctly.
You're constantly saying via magic in every conversation we have.
And that was really a spotlight, I thought, for the Dothraki language that you created. It really shined in that scene. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to write the Dothraki for that scene?
Well, first of all, I thought it was really cool that, you had this magic tower that allowed Jason Momoa to kind of do a curtain call. I remember I got a batch of scripts that I needed to do Dothraki for way back, and I looked at episode 10. I'm like, oh, this is a secret I'm going to have to hang on to for a while. That was really exciting.
Because that scene wasn't in the books, right? I don't think Khal Drogo comes back in the House of the Undying scene in the books.
I haven't read book 2 in a long time, but I don't remember that. I remember seeing that and being like, oh, this is awesome. I'm just happy to see him back. He got an extra day's work.
Yeah, he did. And I thought that was just outstanding because, it's one of those things, especially in the first season, people really got to like him. I think he comes across as even cooler in the show than he does in the books. And then, of course, everybody that read the books is like, yeah, he's not going to be around for a while. So, yeah, it was great to see him back and to hear his Dothraki again, because I thought he did such a good job in the first season, and he did it again for this episode.
Oh, I thought I thought he was great in the first season, but in that scene last night, I thought he was incredible.
Yeah.
I thought his Dothraki could have used like a quick polish, but it wasn't bad.
Well, he does what he does. I love his kind of gravelly voice and this kind of he kind of sounds like he's just a really comfortable speaker of Dothraki. So he just kind of hops and skips over some of the words at the end and really just kind of puts them out there. It's one of those things where you better understand what he's saying, because you don't want to ask him, could you repeat that?
Were there any challenges translating anything in that specific scene?
Let me see. There was one in particular. Actually, one thing I was kind of happy about is that the Dothraki word for dream got to show up, because I was really proud of that etymology. Basically, the word for dream translates literally to wooden life.
Wooden life?
Yeah, wooden life. The idea is this. The words for real and fake come from the words that mean metal and wood. Because the idea is that a real weapon is made out of metal. A fake weapon, something that you give to kids to play around with, is something that's made out of wood. So then that extends to everything else. So something that is wooden is fake. And so then a dream, which when you're dreaming feels like that's the entirety of your life, right? You don't remember anything from your waking life when you're dreaming. Basically then a fake life is a dream, and so it's a wooden life. And so that was kind of nice that you got to see it. But yeah, so there's this line that he has, which translates into English as, or maybe it is a dream. Your dream, my dream, I do not know. These are questions for wise men with skinny arms. But it got to a point where it's like, if you translate that, more or less faithfully, it gets to be quite a bit of a mouthful, because the word for dream is atirarido. And so you say that over and over and over again, and it's kind of like, it doesn't sound like. So what I ended up translating it as was, and maybe it's a dream. Sorry, I'm just kind of translating on the fly as I'm looking at it. And then it's, after that, you have this phrase, atirarido che ieri che anni, which is kind of like literally a dream of yours, of mine. And then he says, I don't know. So he didn't have to repeat the word dream there. That was probably, I think, the most challenging bit of the whole thing, because I didn't want it to sound silly. it sounded good in English to repeat dream over and over again, but I wanted it to come off just right in Dothraki, and I thought he did, especially that delivery, very well.
What's the line he says after that? That's like, but if God help the person that wakes me up from this dream.
Oh yeah.
That was a badass moment.
Oh yeah, you are the moon of my life. That is all I know and all I need to know. And if this is a dream, I will kill the man who tries to wake me. So that part, let's see. Mahashjini atirarido, hash anha badrivak mahrajes finkis vallatana.
I say that whenever I'm really drunk and about to go to sleep. I'm like, the man who wakes me shall die. But I always say it in Dothraki.
Oh, brother, that's sometimes what I say to my poor wife when she wakes me up in the morning. I'm like, oh, is it really that time? And then I spend the rest of the day apologizing.
There's no Dothraki word for sorry, right? They wouldn't apologize.
Oh, give me a break. No. So I have to do all my apologies in English.
That's probably best.
I also noticed, I'm cheating when I say I noticed, I read on your blog that this was the first time that you hear it is known in its native Dothraki tongue.
Yeah, this is actually the first time. Season finale of episode 2. I was like, there are all these opportunities, but then it's like, they're always saying it in English. I'm like, come on, give me this. And then we go, finally. So that was good to finally hear.
While we have you here, Jon, is there anything you would like to hear translated into Dothraki? I asked Jon if there's anything he wants translated, and not you, if you would mind doing 1 or 2 translations for us.
I'll see what I can do on the fly. Go for it.
Okay, so just keeping with their idioms, we'll say like, "Hey, you with skinny arms, bring me all the meat." That's something I find myself needing to say often.
Okay. Okay. How about Zay fuck makoraso ready. Fichi anna eigavat.
Yeah, it sounded perfect. I think I don't know how to respond to when someone speaks a foreign language that I've never. I just nodded, even though I'm on a podcast. I just nodded to you.
Is there a thank you in Dothraki?
No, there's no thank you in Dothraki. I think the best that you can get is this phrase that I have, san atchomari, which means much respect. But you use it kind of in a wider context than thank you. Just anytime somebody, does something good, you say, much respect, san atchomari.
Well, David, much respect for coming back to the show. I forgot how to say it in Dothraki already. I'm so bad. I was the worst foreign language student. Much respect for coming back to the show. Thanks again for talking to us.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
And much respect to you, Jon. Thank you for coming back to the show for Game of Thrones Season 2. Can we do it again for Season 3?
Of course we can, skinny arms. I just don't want to wait that long.
Much respect, Jon. Much respect. Once again, this time in English, thank you to David and Gabrus, not just for doing the show, but also for making themselves available less than 24 hours after the finale aired so I could get this up as quickly as possible. Really appreciate it, guys. Another Jeff Rubin Show coming at you next Tuesday. I'll remind you on Twitter, where I'm at Jeff Rubin Show, on Tumblr, where I'm jeffrubin.com, at youtube.com/jeffrubin, and on my Facebook fan page. If you want to email me, if that's not enough ways to reach out to me, I am Jeff at jeffrubinshow.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll talk to you there. Bye.